All right, hi everyone. I'm Anthony Bowers here from Tallant Asia in Cebu, Philippines. Today I'll be talking with Cliff Entrekin from Convergence Capital Group. He's one of our clients. Welcome, Cliff. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Good to be here.
That's great. Well, Cliff, do you want to just give us a little bit of background on yourself and sort of how you came to be in Hong Kong and what led up to you starting your own company?
Yeah. I originally started out after grad school at Georgia Tech in the U.S. In management consulting. So working with a lot of the large retailers in the U.S., such as Macy's and Taylor, Payless Shoes, to ultimately recreate their sourcing processes, find the right countries to manufacture their goods, and better ways to work with their suppliers.
Right.
One of those ways, often dealing in the physical movement of goods, but also the financial processes that support all of those transactions. So after supporting all those clients and coming over to Asia on multiple occasions to work with their suppliers, I ultimately decided to make the move to Hong Kong and work more on the supplier side for these buyers, specifically in the area of trade finance. So helping these suppliers get financing for their goods as they await customer payments. So many of the large, let's say, retailers or just corporations in general across the world, they normally don't pay cash to suppliers as soon as they receive the goods.
Right.
They're usually paid on open account payment terms. So they may receive the goods at the port of FOB port, but then not pay the supplier for another 60 or 90 days. So
Right.
Supplier still has to pay for all the inventory and the raw materials and the workers' paychecks. So that really becomes a strain on their own working capital. And ultimately, you don't want to see suppliers cutting corners and not thinking about quality or taking care of their workers. You've seen issues in Bangladesh where you've had factories collapse and things of that nature. So it really, if suppliers are strained for cash, it really creates a bad environment that can lead to many bad things, not just around profitability, but sustainability of a developing country, society, and economy.
Got it. So you step in and you help out there. Sounds like something I could do with my business sometimes, I think.
Yeah.
So that's what you're doing. And Convergence Capital Group, how did it come about? Where did the seed start? Where did you make the decision that you think you'd like to start your own business? And when did that happen?
Yeah, well, working with a couple of advisory firms and technology providers here in Asia and Hong Kong before we started Convergence. Like I said, it was all on the supplier side, but it was focused really on the suppliers where we were supporting our U.S. or European large buyer clients. And these advisory firms and these technology providers really did not see a reason, or it just ultimately wasn't in their strategy to really have an Asia Pacific based focus. They didn't really want to look at buyer opportunities out here. They didn't want to look at additional opportunities for the suppliers that extended beyond just the single buyer customer that we had. So, those suppliers may have 10 buying customers in all. And there's really no reason to only focus on one of those specific counterparty relationships when you can help the supplier across their entire portfolio. So that's where we went to the U.S. and got investment backing and decided to specifically do that, create an advisory firm based in Asia that would be Asia-centric. Now, we do work with U.S. buyers and European buyers and Australian buyers, but I'd say it's reverse of what my past companies have done. They find the buyers in the U.S. and then they'll work with the suppliers in Asia. We ultimately find the suppliers first, and then if we have the potential to work with the buyer, then we're more than happy to do so. It always results in lower rates for the supplier.
Okay, very cool. So Convergence Capital started, it was 2 years ago, I think. Was that right? I mean, how long has it been going for?
A little over 2 years ago.
Yeah, I've started my own company up about 13 months ago. You know, it's been an interesting ride. Always different things pop out here and there. Before we get into the specifics of what you're doing with Tallant Asia, just with Convergence Capital, what have been some of the more interesting things that have popped up that you maybe might not have expected as hurdles, and how did you overcome them?
I just think the one thing about Asia specifically is the fragmented markets that you have to deal with. Yeah. So if I was selling a product in the U.S., even Europe to some extent, it's more homogeneous than working with Asia with multiple different languages, cultures, above all, legal jurisdictions. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably been the biggest challenge overall.
Yeah.
And then finding the right staff who can help deal with that diversity, have the resilience to know we're going to fall on our face in some instances, but we've had great partners to help us through some of the legal challenges in certain markets that have come through that. So it's been good with that.
Okay, great. And on the technology side, how's that coming along? Where's that at? Do you have your own platform? Do you use other people's platform? How does that work?
Yeah, so we maintain our own internal platform, but we do outsource our own other platforms in certain areas. Specifically in India, we work with a domestic provider there, and also in mainland China. And then we have a couple other providers we can work with on more of the international cross-border scene. We consider ourselves almost technology agnostic. We want to make sure, and same with our funders. So we don't fund any of our transactions directly. We work as an advisory firm to figure out what the supplier is going through, what type of buyers, what countries they're working with, what type of credit payment terms, and we structure them the right financing in the most efficient and price effective way. Awesome. And like I said, if whatever that takes to facilitate the efficiency with the right technology platform, we'll work within those confines.
Okay, fascinating. And Convergence Capital, my understanding was that you just work with banks, but I actually think that it's broader than that regarding the credit. I mean, who is out there regarding the funding side of things?
Yep. A whole spectrum of funders. So we deal with domestic factoring companies, international factoring companies, trade funds overseas. Right. So we have trade funds based in UK, California, New York, Hong Kong, Singapore. And then we work with the global banks. So there's very large European banks operating in Asia that are doing quite well, especially for trade finance activities. But I think a key area where we shine is we take some of those principles that we learn across all the spectrums, and we go in and advise local domestic banks in some of these emerging markets on how they can act more like a large multinational bank, put in some of those credit risk processes, put in some of those due diligence processes, and allow them to fund on the local level.
Yeah, interesting. So you're adding another arm to their product offering, basically, that they didn't have before.
Yeah, and ultimately they give us more access to the domestic market. So the domestic banks are going to be the best at funding in domestic currencies. So if it's overseas transactions, we can always bring in an overseas funder. That's easy. I think where the niche that we really specialize in is being able to do the whole portfolio on both sides of the balance sheet for our clients. So whether it's their customers or it's their raw material suppliers, which those raw material suppliers may be supported through open account, may be supported through LC, they may be domestic, they may be overseas. whatever the case is. So that's really what we want to be able to do, is not leave anything on the table, and
Yeah.
ultimately help our clients in the best way possible.
Okay, that's absolutely awesome. Let's drill down a bit on relationship between Talent Asia and Convergence Capital Group. You obviously travel around Asia and indeed the world frequently, probably more frequently than you like. Have you ever used an offshoring team before in any of your roles, not just at Convergence Capital, but in previous companies? Have you had any experience of that, and how was that? And then, how's it been working with Talent Asia? And we can have a chat about that.
Yeah, years ago I tried using a virtual assistant. I think this was back in the U.S. Back when I was just doing a side company that I was looking to start up.
Yeah.
I'll say it didn't go over really well.
Okay.
And I think the lessons learned from that, and not just working with any kind of BPO or virtual assistant or anything like that, I think in general, when working with a BPO, you treat them like your staff, and you would never bring in staff and expect them to know everything day one, or expect to spend 5 minutes a day with them and really get quality work out of them. So the key thing, and what's been great about Talent, you don't want to invest that type of time in overseas staff unless you are sure they're going to be in it for the long run themselves. And I think that's what's been great about not just Talent, but you personally, helping to make sure we get the right people in, that they want to grow with the company, and that our interests are both aligned.
Yes.
And where our goals want to be, not just tomorrow, but 5 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, for us, it's about building a team for you, and they're your team, and they're just as much as your team as if they were sat next to you in Hong Kong. And it's a really important part of the process. Doesn't happen overnight, but that's the goal that we work towards. So Talent Asia, your staff for Convergence Capital that are here in Cebu, what are they doing? So that the listeners can get an idea about how we're helping. And
so primarily they are driving our inbound and outbound marketing activities. So they are creating a lot of our branding collateral, writing white papers, case studies, updating the website, but also researching potential markets, potential leads within those markets where we should be focusing our solutions, and then targeting those potential leads to warming them up to potential sales activities, an initial advisory conversation.
Yeah. All right, that's interesting. And so far, the feedback we've got that it's been fairly successful. Did you see any areas of growth? Where do you think that the team will head to next? Are there other roles that you're looking at?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that we definitely learned, which has been great for us, once we got everyone on board, we created a process, but we were very open about involving the team in Cebu on how to refine that process, how to make that process better. And I drilled that into them from day one. I said, look, you're never going to make me angry asking a question. You're never going to make me upset by saying something doesn't work. What will make me upset is if you tell me something, if you don't tell me something is not working. And ultimately I want to hear your feedback and hear your thoughts on how to change these things. And so I think every week at minimum, we're continuing to refine the process. And we've become extremely structured in that process. So we don't just have a very step-by-step customer relationship process, but it's got automation through our CRM platform that sends out notification emails to myself, my sales staff, and then tracks everything through the pipeline through our dashboard reporting. So it's been great.
Well, look, it's excellent. I'm glad it's gone well. I mean, one of the things that we do emphasize in is that people do get the training manuals and processes down pat, and it's one of the key areas is the transfer of knowledge. And when you're running a small business, often it's up here. Right?
Yeah.
So it's a very good exercise to be able to take it from up here to something that's written down, and that makes it replicable. You can then scale as rapidly as you want, as long as it's down there and someone here can help you with the training rather than you having to do it over and over again. I think that's a key.
I think that was one of the great things about Tallant, because after we first talked, I was kind of at a place where I either needed to hire someone here in Hong Kong or do something else very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think the structure that Tallant allowed for by you putting a few part-time people in place helped me get all of that initial knowledge out of my head and on paper. As we searched for some very specific people in very specific roles, because what we do is you really have to have a good understanding of three very diverse areas: supply chain, finance, and technology. So there's not many people on the market that really fit that spectrum. So I think you guys did a great job of sourcing and finding those right people, but that doesn't happen overnight. But I think we got some initial part-time resources in place that helped the whole ramping up period. So when those people came on board and we agreed to the right folks, that they were able to hit the ground running with all of our documentation in place. And I won't say the perfect process, but we at least had an initial documented process.
I don't think processes are ever actually perfect. They morph and change as the business morphs and change, but it's an ongoing battle to sharpen it up and get it helping your business. And I agree. I think that one of the key areas is if you haven't really done much outsourcing before, you haven't worked with remote teams before, I would say just do it. Get some part-timers there, see how it works, see the difficulties that you have, and how you can overcome those difficulties when you're dealing with remote staff, and then move to finding someone that's really fits well with what you're planning to do, and then grow it from there.
Totally agree.
Because I think a lot of people struggle with the concept of it, that we're very, here at Tallant Asia, very cognizant that there are no regional barriers or location barriers anymore. It's all technology driven. I can do the work from here, I can do it from Hong Kong, and it's about, I think one of the key things we do is open up a global market for human resources for companies, right? So rather than you just needing to look in your locale in Hong Kong, you can also see who's available in the Philippines, and therefore broaden your net, so to speak. I think that's a big plus for companies like Convergence Capital, where you're really trying to get the best staff, in a cost competitive manner.
Yeah, but I think you hit it on the head. For many people, and even for me, it was a big mindset change. And honestly, if we hadn't come out with the structure that we did, where I could bring, so no matter what, I needed to document this process and put all the training material in my head, whether I brought on staff in Philippines or Hong Kong or Kuala Lumpur, wherever the case is. So allowing me to, I guess, get in on the action and see how things really worked, and at least create an initial rapport with Tallant and the staff there. Yeah, it was a no-brainer after the first 6 weeks. So all right. Well, look, I really appreciate you taking the time, Cliff. I'm glad the team's going well. We're looking forward to future growth with you. We wish you all the best with Convergence Capital. I know the team here at Tallant Asia, really feel that they're part of your team, and I love that. And I'm glad that they're kicking goals for you and onwards and upwards. Okay. Great.
All right. So that was cool, mate. So just wrapping up my talk with Cliff Entrekin from Convergence Capital Group. My name's Anthony Bowers. I'm the founder of Tallant Asia. And thank you very much for taking the time to listen to us. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.